Welcome to You Me Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You Me Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of You Me Empathy. It's been a minute. This is episode 186 on external validation, women and anger, and eating disorder recovery in Hollywood with actor and photographer Amanda Crew, the delightful Amanda Crew. We talk about being witness to and exploring each other's dark bits, external validation, as I mentioned, women being conditioned to not express anger, why we alone define our worth, eating disorder recovery, and just so much more. We also talk about, of course, we talk about Schitt's Creek because Amanda's beau, partner, life buddy, Dustin Milligan plays Ted on Schitt's Creek. So we talk about that a bit and just so much more. Amanda is a delight. Really enjoyed this conversation. And thank you for being here. It's been a month since a new episode. I took the month of July off. If you're new, I took the month of July off from the podcast, and it felt great. I went on a 2-week road trip up the coast of California into Portland, Oregon. That was lovely and needed, and now I'm back with new episodes every Monday. In addition to these interview episodes, these long chats with Feely friends, I will also be doing solo episodes, maybe one a month, coming soon. So if you have ideas that you'd love to hear me talk about, specific things you'd love to hear me explore, deep dive on, solo episodes, just let me know. Email me, yumiempathy@gmail.com. Let me know if you have ideas, or you can DM me on Instagram at yumiempathy there. But solo episodes coming soon. And new episodes coming forward, starting with this one with Amanda Crew. Before we get to the episode, though, I wanted to remind you that You Me Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, which is a collaborative mental health community where you can take workshops. We actually have a workshop coming up later this month, on grief and writing from my pal Katie Huey. Announcement about that over on Feely Human, at Feely Human on Instagram. And the best place to be sort of aware of what's going on in my world and the things that I'm doing and the things with Feely Human is to sign up for the newsletter. So if you go to feelyhuman.co, click on the community tab and click on newsletter at the top there and sign up for the newsletter. I send out notes every month, so sign up for that. But yeah, look out for that workshop. There's a new mug and sticker in the shop at feelyhuman.co/shop. The mug is called Sitting With My Feelings, and the sticker is an adorable jam jar. And the sticker title is Feelings Are My Jam. So there's a theme there. Feelings are cool. Feelings are valid. They're not good or bad. They're feelings. We have them. We love them. You love them. We sit with them. Sometimes we discern if they're true or not. And they're wonderful. Anyways, feelyhuman.co/shop is where you find out that. August 22nd, I am hosting is not really the right word for it, but we're doing the first Feely hikes. So this is where we get together. It's going to be the first one. We're going to do it in Orange County. If you're interested to learn more, just DM me on Instagram at yumiempathy or email me yumiempathy@gmail.com if you're interested in joining or bringing a pal. Again, it's August 22nd. We're going to be hiking in Orange County. I'm going to be trying to do these once a month where we move our bodies and move our hearts a little bit too along the way. All experiences are welcome. All humans are welcome. So if you're interested in Feely Hikes, August 22nd, email me, youmeempathy@gmail.com. And the last thing, make sure to follow us, us is not right. It's me, on Instagram. Social media is Instagram. That's the only one I'm on, at FeelyHuman and at YouMeEmpathy. And if you do like the show, and I hope you do, it's been a while since I've been doing this show. It's almost 4 years since I've been doing this show. If you do like it, if you haven't left a rating and review, please do so. It does help out the show, truly. So leave ratings and reviews in Apple Podcasts. And if you want to level up your support, go to patreon.com/feelyhuman. I release bonus episodes every month, and you get those at the $5 and up tier. And then for $10 and up, you get a monthly hang with me and other Feely Humans on deep dive topics for an hour or two. It's wonderful. But again, that's at patreon.com/feelyhuman. No pressure. I love you regardless. Thank you. Let's get to the episode. Very excited for my chat with the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Feely Human, Amanda Crew. Oh, and the last thing I'll say is, light trigger warning is that we do, of course, I mentioned we do talk about eating disorder recovery. We do mention sexual trauma, though I will just disclaimer that with, we don't get into any specifics or explicit detail. They are mentioned, certainly, though. So just fair warning. Okay, let's get to episode 186 on external validation, women and anger, and eating disorder recovery in Hollywood with my guest, Amanda Crew.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You Me Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being Feely humans. You Me Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am so happy to be with my people, or my crew, if you will, as I'm here with actor, photographer, and courageous mental health and eating disorder recovery advocate, Amanda Crew. Hello, Amanda.
Hello. I loved that intro.
Thank you.
Nice wordplay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was right there for the taking. It's maybe a little bit easy, but I love wordplay.
I love
words.
wordplay, and I have the last name for it, so you should take full advantage.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We have to cherish and champion our friends' growth, right? And our friends' silliness, really.
Absolutely. Joy.
Pure joy. Well, Amanda, I am so happy to be here with you today. Let's get right into it. How are you feeling?
I was thinking about, because I was like, he's going to ask me. Damn it. And it's funny because I was thinking about, I've done a couple podcasts recently, which I haven't typically done, and they've always caught me on like a really good day. So it's got kind of like a hopeful spin on it. And today the weather's gloomy and my insides feel a little gloomy, and I'm feeling a little tender. And I wonder if part of that is also anticipating this conversation because I know that you do hold such an open space and you can't really hide. And so I think there's like a little bit of that, which I'm excited about, but there is that kind of fear of like, oh God, here come my dark bits.
I'm here for your dark bits, Amanda. I appreciate that honesty too. It is, I don't live far from you, so it is gloomy here as well. And I am often reflecting the external stuff back inward, or vice versa, right? It's pretty common for me. And I think probably for a lot of people, really, weather is a thing that can affect us, right? When you're feeling that sort of internal gloom, like what is that? Is that an uncomfortable feeling? Is that like, where do you go with that usually?
I think for the longest time, I really fought it because I thought that was wrong and we're not supposed to feel dark and there's something wrong with me, and to just kind of disconnect from it. And, all the different ways I've resorted to numbing and blocking that out. And I think it's only been in the past, 4 years that through some intense therapy, learning that, our darkness actually can be a gift for us, to highlight parts of ourselves that we're trying to run away from. Those parts do have gifts and they have things to tell us. And so, but it still is uncomfortable to hold space for it. None of us want to feel those feelings, but I think I've like learned slowly over time that it's not as bad as I thought it was to sit in it. Sometimes it is excruciating, but other times it actually passes, or there's something that I discover in that. And so I think that's lately what I've been trying to practice more of is just like holding it and not the biggest one, not trying to fix it. And that's such a hard one for my personality type, because I always just want to know what the problem is and how do I fix it, and what self-help book is going to finally give me the answer to what's wrong with me and how I can fix it. I think just kind of like accepting those parts of me and being able to hold them.
I think that's wonderful and so thoughtful. I that's really it. It's like we as humans want to bypass. We want to like put things in boxes. We want to it's such a human thing to do, to want to like get to the place where I'm healed. I've achieved the thing. Whatever it may be. And the hard truth is that doesn't exist, right? It is so messy and nuanced and complex. And you're right. We have to sit in that. And I think what you're speaking to is so powerful, which is like, we sit in it, and after a time, after we build that muscle, it gets easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it gets easier. We start to learn about what our triggers are. We start to reflect back on like who we are. It just gets easier over time.
Yeah, it's so true. It's interesting because the other day I've been going on these like morning walks since COVID started last year, just in the neighborhood for like an hour. And I love it so much. And it's something that I didn't really do before. I was just such you go to the gym and it's fluorescent lighting, and I have anxiety for some reason. It's so weird. Exercise is supposed to make me feel more calm. And so I really started just walking around the neighborhood. And it was last week, I think I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember the podcast, but he was saying something about how we carry our pain around with us in a way where we hold on to this story of like, this thing happened to me, and like, can you believe it? And I was thinking about that because I was like, I do that. And I know so many people do that. And I was like, why, like, what is it that, like, what is the mechanism in that? And for me, I realized that so much of that is that I haven't been able to hold space for my own pain. And by not being able to do that, I wasn't able to validate my pain. Like, yeah, this hurts. This thing that happened to you was awful. and painful. And so instead, because I didn't have it in me to validate that, I had to seek other people I had to keep telling the story so that other people be like, oh my God, that's awful. I'm like, right? But it's still hollow because it's not coming from within you. And that's, to bring it back to what we're saying, like, that's what I've discovered, is that by being able to just hold it for myself, I'm able to validate that pain for myself. And that is then your own, like, you own that. And it's not rooted in other people's validation of your experience.
So beautifully said, and so important. Yeah, because if we're not, like you said, if we're not holding that, we're not seeing our own truth. And if we're only sort of external validation, and that's fine, like, that's not a bad thing. But what happens is people start to see us as we're not seeing us, or they're seeing us in a way that maybe we don't need to be seen, or they're not seeing the whole truth because we're not. At the end of the day, we're not really offering up that whole truth.
Right. Your whole self.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it works in the opposite too, of like, if you're not able to connect with that part of yourself that we all have, that is great with a capital G. Like, we all have greatness in us. But if we're constantly, that's been most of my career, has been seeking external validation of like, am I finally like good enough? Like, it was so much of my career has been rooted in trying to erase these bad things that happened to me in my childhood, like sexual trauma. It's just like, once I get this job, then finally I'll feel like I'm enough, I'm good enough. And it's all rooted in these external things that anytime I get a version of it, it wouldn't obviously make me feel like I was finally good. And again, what we're saying, been trying to hold that space also for myself on the flip side of it, of my greatness, of like rooting that in myself, of a knowing deep within myself, and not based off of someone else telling me that I'm good.
Yeah. I love that. It's less the eraser. It's more of just like, okay, we just got to keep writing. We have to turn it around and just keep writing with the pencil. And what does this look like? Yeah. I love that. So, you mentioned before, Amanda, that you have a tendency toward like wanting to fix the thing. Let's fix the thing. Have you always been that way?
I don't know. I think it's hard to know, because I think also my version of my childhood is kind of through different lenses. Sure. But I think, my sexual trauma started when I was 12, and that's such a pivotal age as a girl, and whether you're female, non-binary, male, like, it is just such a timely period of discovering self. And so, I think that kind of confusion that led to, and then me seeking ways to make sense of the confusion, fix the confusion, like all of that. So I think that there was seeds of that there that then just really started to kind of blossom, to put it in a nice way.
Well, I mean, and we don't need to get into detail or anything, but like, sexual trauma at an early age. I mean, I remember having, this was dozens of, maybe 100 episodes ago, I had someone on. They have dissociative identity disorder.
Oh, wow.
And it started with sexual trauma at the age of 3, I believe. And I use that as an example of like early sexual trauma. There is so like they to process that, to try to survive the perversion of nature, which is that their identity, split, right? So we do so much, and this is the point, we do so much to, like, when we experience something that feels like a perversion of nature, or like, this is not right, like a sexual trauma at the age of 12, we do so much to try to survive and just try to make sense of it. And a lot of that coping, a lot of those tools are survival, and they deny us parts of ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's the part that's been coming up a lot for me in the past few years is the grief of what was lost. And because I didn't really start diving into that part of my history until like a couple of years ago. I had done like some brief kind of explorations, but it was clear that I was not ready. And then a couple of years ago, I felt really ready to kind of dive in, and just so much grief over what was lost and what could have been, and so much anger and rage. And I think that was really difficult for me too, because anger, I think, is something that a lot of women are conditioned not to express, that it's dangerous and it's bad. So it was very challenging period to go and like, explore all of that. But through the grief and the rage, allowing myself to feel that, it really does shift something in you. Like it moves that energy. And now I feel like I'm working with kind of stored trauma physically in my body. That feels like what's coming up next to kind of like work through is like I constantly, it's become a running joke with me and my husband to make light, because that is what helps me in my healing, is like to have a sense of humor. But it's like, I constantly am looking down and like my hands are in fists. My hands are always clenched. And it's funny because, again, I can have a sense of humor about it, but there's so many photos of me on red carpets where it's like all elegance. And then you go down to my hands and it's just like, that Arthur meme where he's just like, his hands are clenched.
Yeah.
That's me. Like, I'm on a carpet. I'm wearing this beautiful gown. I got my hair and makeup done, and my fists are showing exactly what's going on inside of me. And it's terror.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that an image of womanhood, right? Like the woman who's like I'm at a red carpet, or I'm trying to sort of put this external thing on to get by. And at the same time, I have my fists ready to attack. I am full of anger and I'm sick of all of this, right? Like isn't that an image?
So much of
powerful.
It. And I think also what I realized with the fists is like, there's a feeling of like, I've never been hit, but it's an anticipation of being hit. That's like what the body is like. It's anticipating like impact. That's what I feel like. And I'm sure it's been like that for years, but it's only now, because I think of the emotional therapy work I've been doing, that I'm now recognizing how it's manifested in my body. And there's grief and rage with that too, because I'm like, this is my body. Like I should feel at home in my body, and I want to feel at home, and, F these guys who like took that from me and just got to go on with their lives and probably never thought twice about what they did. And here I am left with, their baggage. Like I remember that therapy session where it was just like, it just came over me like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this to happen. And yet here I am left with their baggage, and I don't know how to proceed. And I have to do all this work to figure out how to proceed. I'm the one that has to do therapy. I'm the one that is like left with all of this shit. And you're the one that did it to me.
Yeah. It's deeply unfair, and a reflection of the deep unfairness that is this system that we live in, especially toward women, right? Mm-hmm. You said something that on Instagram that I found deeply profound, which was, I carry these men in my body. I know they don't carry me. That's what you were just saying right there. Yeah. My heart breaks like thinking about that.
I get emotional just you bringing it up.
It's deeply, like I think about, so I haven't, I had an experience at the age of like, I guess I was like around 10 or something, and it was a sexual experience with a boy who was 3 years older than me, and it was very confusing, and I wasn't ready for it. And I am not sort of at the stage where I'm like, this was assault or anything, but it was certainly like weird and not, probably shouldn't have happened kind of thing. And I only reflect that because I think that I held and continue to hold a lot of confusion and anger, and just angry at the system that led to that, which was, in my case, a great deal of sexual repression, and the system of evangelical Christianity, and the system of not talking, the system of a boy being sensitive and feeling scared in a violent environment, right? And being in this, having this experience, and then not being able to talk about it at times, and feeling unsafe to talk about it, right? Like, it breaks my heart that these systems exist, because it denies us of our truths. It denies us of healing, and we go through periods of time where we're just holding our fists,
Yeah, and I think to what you're talking about too, with your experience, it's, there's also, because our system wants to like hide these things, there's not a lot of language for the kind of, I don't even want to call it gray area, because that kind of diminishes these events. But if it's not a violent rape in an alleyway by a stranger, then it's not that. And that's not true. And it's actually been through hearing about other people's stories that I've also been able to have more language for the experience. But when you're younger, or even when you're older, if it doesn't look like that one thing, then there's no language for it. And then you diminish it because you're like, well, it's not that big of a deal. And that creates so much more pain. But your body knows that was not right. That did not feel good. I did not want that. But then your mind gets in there saying, well, it's not that, so it's not that big of a deal. And I know that you are well versed in the eating disorder world. It's the same of like, if you don't have an eating disorder that looks like the stereotypical eating disorder, then you don't have one. And therefore there's something wrong with you, but it's not that. And you're then in a cycle of shame. Like, there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a important point. And it's brutal. It's brutal to think about that. And it's deeply upsetting to think about that. I think about like, so I think about these, sorry, I saw this hummingbird out my window and I was distracted for a second. And now it's raining.
Isn't that nice? That. Hummingbirds are supposed to be like signals of magic and fertility, I think, too.
Oh, I like magic. That. I love a hummingbird. Yeah. Yeah. So the disconnect of, well, really at the end of the day, it's like this idea that there's only one way to experience pain, or only one way to experience this thing, when the reality is like trauma is trauma, and we are all beautifully individual, and we experience our experiences in our own unique ways, right? And then we also forget, as you are talking about, how we hold it in our bodies. Right. And that's a piece of it that I've been like, in my own mental health journey, exploring more and more, reading The Body Keeps the Score.
I just got that book.
It's wonderful. Have you read it yet?
I haven't read it yet. It literally just arrived today, but everyone in that space is just like, this is the book. This is the Holy Grail.
It is. It's amazing, and also very eye-opening. But it makes sense. Like, I hold a lot of my I think, a lot of my pain in my stomach. And for years I had just like, I mean, I have like intestinal issues. I think a lot of like us who've had eating disorders have intestinal issues, but like I hold so much of it there. And still to this day, I feel such shame about it. And I feel like I feel angry toward myself that like my stomach hurts all the time. And I'm forgetting that like all of it's connected, right?
No.
And I think there's a grace in that, allowing that to be, you know, and there's also like a compassion in allowing the fact that your trauma is related to your physical body and your emotional body and all of it. And it's all connected, you know?
All connected. And I'm so glad you mentioned the compassion part, because that has been the hardest part for me, which is like such a huge part of healing, is having compassion for yourself and your younger self. And I remember, it's not the therapist that I'm working with now, it was the therapist I was working with years ago. And she would always have me do this practice where she would she'd point to this empty chair and like, I want you to put young Amanda in that chair and tell her what she needed to hear. And you know how there's that exercise where you're supposed to look in the mirror and say, you know, I love you, Amanda. I think you're amazing. Like that, I always thought I'm like, that's so stupid. I could do that with my eyes closed or open. Like, I mean, I'm an actor. I'm just like, that's so easy. Like I never understood it, and I could just bullshit my way through it. But there was something about when she put young me in that chair. It was so bizarre to me. I mean, it makes sense, but like I could not fake my way through that. It made me so uncomfortable. It made me want to like throw up. And the only way I could get through it is if I changed young me to one of my friends and pretended that they were going through it. And I had to give them, you know, compassion and support. And that was a clue to me that there was some compassion missing and an inability to hold that for myself. And, you know, obviously I've made progress in that I am able to hold that for myself. And that's where I felt so much has shifted for me, because that was such a difficult one, to be able to hold that space for myself and have compassion. I think with the eating disorder, I have so much compassion, but the sexual assaults that I've experienced, that victim mentality, it really messes with, it's like, it is real. And so that's where I still have the voices of like, yeah, but you could have done this, or you could have said this, or you shouldn't have worn this, like all the classics that we hear, but it is real. Like they are real voices in my head that I'm still working through.
And it's understandable, right? Like this is that's deep trauma, right? And I am so deeply sorry that you've had to go through that bullshit.
But isn't it interesting? Because you can say that for me. And yet with your stomach thing, it's hard for you to have that compassion. And I also know for me, any of my friends who have experienced sexual trauma and share that with me, I can be that person who's like, no, there's no way this is your fault. No way that you, but then when it comes to yourself, it's just like, yeah, but I don't know.
Well, it's easier, right? It is easier to reflect outward.
Absolutely.
When we're reflecting inward, there's a lot more discomfort.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because we know ourselves best, and we also know how to lie to ourselves. We know how to hide. We know how to put on armor. It's a lot trickier.
Very tricky.
Yeah. The self-compassion piece is very important. And I hear that. Like I hear about people who've had sexual trauma and the buts. But it's this, or but it's that, or but, and it makes sense to me. And this is why. It's another survival tool. It's like I am trying to process the most horrific trauma that I could imagine. It's happened to me. And our brains do this thing of why, right? Like we're just trying to figure it out, and we're going to go through the cycle of shame, and we're going to go through the cycle of guilt, and we're going to go through the cycle of, but this, what if it was this specific, what if this fact changed, whatever. At the end of the day, like, so give yourself compassion for even trying to process that. Cause I think that's just part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And also fuck all those men. Like truly, like this is, they're symptoms of a system, right? They're symptoms of the great systematic issue that exists in so many spaces. Certainly Hollywood is one of those spaces.
Well, that's, you were saying earlier about that too, and the systems. And that is, while I still have anger, there is, though, a part of me that when I'm in a really good place, I can also see that they are victims to a system too. That doesn't make what they did excusable. But I also see like toxic masculinity in some of these situations where they were taught wrong. And they were just acting out what they thought that they are supposed to do. And I have compassion for it. Again, it's not saying that it's okay. And I wish it didn't happen, but I also can understand that the same way that I have, been programmed as a woman to suppress my feelings and be quiet and be a good girl and all those things, men also have been programmed with a lot of toxicity.
True. And I will say that there's no excuse for sexual assault or never, right? Yes, there are like deep-seated systems of toxic masculinity, and men can't feel their feelings, and we need to be these beacons of strength and all this stuff. But we're also like born into a system where we just have a leg up, right? Like, so we do have the choice, we can like use our innate capacity for reason, right? And empathy but you're right. Like there is a system that rewards a lot of that behavior.
Yeah. I think especially for a couple of my experiences, they were with, one was, he was 18. And so younger, just not enough life experience, and also what kind of dad he had who was teaching him those things.
Sure.
Just a footnote.
And that's an empathetic lens. It is.
I try to, but it is, I also know that it depends where you are. That's not helpful in certain situations and maybe never be helpful. It has been helpful for me in the sense that I don't want to carry anger for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
And so it's been helpful in me. The anger has been helpful, and I needed to process a lot of that anger. And then you get to a certain point where you're like, I don't want to keep carrying this anger. I don't want to be an angry person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my dear friend, Danae Logan, talks about the stages of healing, which are like the first stage being the suffering, a lot of the pain. And then the second stage, which is maybe where you're at and probably where we're most of us are at, is the seeking. Is like, I am tired of this pain. I need to like figure this out. I need to go to therapy. I need to do the inward work. I need to ask questions and be curious and figure out who the hell I am.
What comes after that?
Great question. Tell me
all the steps and I'll fix myself.
I mean, that is I know. 3 easy steps to health and healing. That is enlightenment. That is being completely detached from outcomes. Right. Which is where, I hope I'm trying to work toward. I hope we're all trying to work toward that. I think I'm certainly not there.
Oh, I'm definitely not there.
And maybe even saying not there is problematic, because it maybe leans on the like boxes, right? It leans on the, there's a finish line here, which there's not.
Yeah, the finish line is something that was also I had a lot of grief over. I'm like, you mean I never get to a point where I'm just fixed and I'm enlightened, and it all just magically goes away. But then it's been a helpful reframe. I think binary thinking has been something that's really been problematic for me, that I've just realized more in the past couple of years, of this kind of black versus white, good versus bad, what is good, all of those things. And this idea of both can exist has kind of just blown my mind wide open.
But not only both can exist, there is myriad points in between that can exist as well, right? Yeah, it's such an important realization that you had, and we all should have, I think, because there is a lot of it goes back to the bypassing that we do, right? We're denying a lot of ourself when we see things in binary terms, right?
Yes, and
this
others
versus that. Yeah, others. Yeah, there's a lot of othering within binary terms, right? There's a lot of like ignoring of or forgetting of certain types of people or certain experiences, right? It's Republican or Democrat. It's this versus that. If I'm on this side, I am naturally opposed to you and your beliefs. And that's like that kind of thinking just gets us into so much trouble.
Yeah, we're like addicted to being up against something. Like the hero's journey is just...
Well, it's capitalism, right? Yeah. It's capitalism. It's certainly Hollywood. It's like we've forgotten about the power of connection and community. Like that is what we need more of. It's not like pitting against one another.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you've talked openly about your experiences dealing with eating disorders, right? Can you walk me through a little bit of like the early stages and like what that looked like for you? I know, like for me, like reflecting back on that time for me, which was many years ago, it's a little fuzzy at times, certainly. So I totally understand that happening. But for me, there were some very clear moments in terms of like my behavior and what it looked like. For me, it was like, I'm all of a sudden mediating my parents' marriage, and like that doesn't seem right, so like there was like weird moments in my family life and my mental health that sort of led to this like anorexia in my case. What was it for you?
Yeah, mine, I didn't really realize it till later, but the seeds started very much after the sexual trauma I experienced earlier on in my life. But they're just like seeds, like no warning signs. But if I look back, I'm like, that's probably not good behavior, of just kind of restricting food in weird ways. But it wasn't, but I think it was all kind of, quote unquote manageable, or not sending any signals off. And it wasn't until, so I started acting when I was like 16, and I moved to Los Angeles when I think it was 20, but I had been working for a while in Vancouver and had really kind of, quote unquote, built a name for myself. And then coming to Los Angeles, I had this resume, but you're suddenly no one, because obviously it's just like everyone here is an actor and everyone has things on the resume. And couple that with like, I just come out of a really toxic relationship, very codependent, and lost myself in that. And to be honest, looking back, I'm like, I don't even know if there was a self to lose. Like, I think I just was so
good point,
disconnected from myself, trying to fit in high school. I was really that kind of people pleaser, just wanting to, just kind of fit in, but also like fade away at the same time.
I relate to that.
Yeah. And so I don't think I had a strong sense of self. And then moving to LA, my only sense of self was through my career, because I had been somewhat successful at that point. So that felt sturdy, strong, and like, okay, this is my identity. I'm an actress. And, that comes with a whole identity. And so when I moved to LA and felt like I was, no one, I started looking to, well, what does an actress look like? And that's the part where it gets kind of fuzzy, because it's like, there's part of it that's image, the eating disorder, but then there's a whole part that was just like, rooted in not having a sense of self and pretending that the sexual trauma I experienced did not happen.
Yeah.
No tools to connect with myself, to just be with myself. And my roommate that I moved in with also had a form. I don't want to put labels on but she had told me that in college she had an eating disorder, but then by moving in with her, I started picking up on her habits, and it almost became this weird unspoken competition, like who could take it further. And I don't even think she was playing it, but I was playing it, and I was going to win. And it was the one place where I felt like I had some power. Like I felt like so powerless in my career, but this one area, in the silent competition, I was pushing it. And then, I got addicted to working out as well. And so the combination of the two, it was just so fast how I deteriorated. And that period is black for me. It's like, I just like blacked out. Like I don't really remember much from that time. Sometimes I'll have like flashbacks. My friends that I'm still friends with from that period will like reference something that happened, that time we went to that. I'm like, I don't remember that at all. Yeah. And it all kind of came crashing down when I had an accident. I was like hiking, running uphill, downhill, no food, smoking cigarettes, coffee, just I'm like, how did you even move?
I was in the thick of my eating disorder, Amanda. I was rolling my own cigarettes. I mean, ridiculous. Like looking back, I'm just like, what are you doing? But I was in Swansea, Wales. I was like, all right, this is like what you do. But like, it's just like,
but I totally get the cigarette thing, because I was a vegan who smoked cigarettes, but they were American spirits, so they were natural.
There you go. There you go.
But I tripped on a rock when I was running downhill and had nothing in my body. So I did not catch my footing and I cracked my knee. And that's the moment that I feel like I woke up, because I was in this leg brace. So I could not work out. And I was supposed to start a project that week that I could not do. And so I still think of it as one of those like divine intervention moments, because the thing, like I was literally running away from myself in my aggressive cardio workouts daily.
Very poetic.
Yes. And numbing myself by restricting excessively, and then forced to sit still. I couldn't run from myself. And it was then that I really had that wake up moment where I was just like, what have I done to myself? Like, that was also the moment where I could actually physically see through, like not in the distorted body image way, but like the real, like what I actually look like, and was like horrified and then terrified, and suddenly could feel my body again and could feel like how fast my heart was racing when I was just sleeping. Terrified that my organs were going to shut down. And then just assessing like where I was in my life and what was going on. And so that was kind of the moment that I, woke up and slowly made these shifts out of it.
Yeah. Can we talk about that moment for a second? Because I had a moment like that myself, and I'm wondering if the doctor or anyone like medically had said anything about like your. Yeah. Okay.
I have a weird moment with one of the doctors. I saw so many different doctors because I had the knee, and then possible infection in the knee from the cut. And so seeing the doctor, and I'm like, well, when, I'm in this brace, and I'm just like, so when can I work out again? And I'm sure he sensed like, he's looking at me and then and he asked me, he's like, why is that so important to you? And I was just like, well, I'm an actor. I have to stay in shape. Like I can't not work out. And he just looked at me and, I think he said, like it's going to be like 3 months or something like that. But it was the way that he asked me, why is that so important to you? That at the time made me feel like I was just like, fuck this guy. Like I know what you're thinking. And cause at that point I still couldn't admit to myself that I had an eating disorder. And so I just felt his judgment and really hated him for that. And I look back at it now and I'm like, clearly he was concerned. I don't know what the right way is for a doctor to address that and what is their duty. And really, even if there's anything he could have said that I would have responded to be honest.
Sure. Yeah.
But I do just remember that moment of feeling like so exposed and like, oh my God, he knows. And I don't even know, but I do know, but I won't say it. And just, I couldn't wait to get out of that office.
You know what's so interesting to me about that? It makes me think about this thing we do when we're in our pain is we'll convince ourselves of anything. And we'll convince ourselves that no one in the world can understand but us. And it's such a like self-isolating, self-protective measure, right? But it only is a disservice to us, right?
Yeah, that is such a perfect way to put it, because I did feel that way, that like no one could understand. And I think I've always been kind of like a moody kid. And I've always felt that way. Even when I was younger, I'd spend so much time in my bedroom alone. And that's like the only place that I felt safe. And being social in high school gave me anxiety. And, I'd use like acting class as like a way to not have to be social. Like I have class and I can't like, which then now as I think about that, I'm like, yeah, there's seeds of that rooted in my career, my identity and my career.
Well, it's so like, it is a bit poetic or romantic because you're like, I'm putting on someone else's face. I don't have to show up as myself.
Yeah. It's an actor friend of mine. We talked about that, of like how in a role, like if we have to be, just kind of destroyed looking and what, no makeup, whatever, we're so like, yeah. And then the minute it comes to doing press, we're like, oh my God, like so aware of what we look like. And it's, and I think that's why, I'm drawn to acting, is because the idea of like playing another character, but is really just another version of yourself, but you get to hide behind it saying it's a character, but you're like, joke's on you. This is really me. But the press part is like, this is me, but really, if I look at that, it's like this, fantasized version of me. And that's something that I'm still, looking at, is like how I want to be showing up publicly as me. 'Cause it is a weird, quote unquote, I'm not a celebrity, but the idea of like celebrity, just like when you're doing press and stuff like that, it's just like that image that is projected onto you. I've always been the person who has just accepted that. Like, yeah, that's the way it is. That's my binary thinking, just kind of like, that's what you have to do. And I see so many other people who are just so authentic in themselves and don't care and just do it how they want to. And I'm like, you can just do that. And so
but who's to say that that's what they're doing, right? Like we never know.
We'll never know. But I do think that some people you can sense like authenticity. You can, or at least some form of it. Maybe it's not fully authentic, but like more so than you feel from another person. And it's those people that I feel when you connect to that with someone else, it's like it gives you permission to do the same.
It does. And it's a beautiful mirroring we can be for each other. I think where we get into trouble, and it's what I was maybe trying to speak to, is we start to project our own stuff onto people, and we start to make assumptions, and then it gets into comparing game, and then we get into like, I need to have that, or they're better than me, or whatever,
The comparison game is just put that on my tombstone. Like that's just me. And it's so hard in my industry to not compare, yet the comparing is the death of you. I mean, it's so hard to just keep a level head as an actor. There's so much that's out of your control, and there's so much that, you know, we're told it's just about talent and who's right, but it's not. It's, you know, this person brings in more value. You remind them of their ex-wife. We want a blonde girl, like whatever it is. There's just so many other things, but yet you take it so personally, and then wondering why. I mean, that was the root of, not the root, but that was part of the eating disorder, was comparing myself to the girls that were booking the jobs I was auditioning for, and seeing the girls on the covers of the magazines. And, you know, that was like the height of Us Weekly and Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton and that kind of, you know, heroin chic look. And I was just like, okay, well, that's what I need to do. And so comparison really dug me a deep hole.
How to this day, you, Amanda, now in this moment, how, in what ways are you comparing yourself to others?
I think, you know, I was just saying this to my therapist. This will probably make me cry, and is probably like a very vulnerable thing to share, but and feels like also like I'm not allowed to talk about this as an actor. Like we're supposed to just kind of like always present with like, I'm living the dream.
Yeah.
But
you're human.
I am human. And, you know, I was on a show for like 6-7 years that like I'm so grateful to have been on. It was such a gift, and in so many different ways, and also created stability for me that I was so grateful for, because it allowed me to do this therapy, because I knew that I had this job and I had the money and the time. And then that job was over, as they always do. And, you know, Silicon Valley ended in like October of 2019. And all I wanted was to just jump on another show. Like I just wanted to be able to jump to the next one. And it's been really challenging. I mean, also the timing is like, you know, TV shows usually cast in the winter, which then was when we went into COVID. And so it's, you know, we essentially lost a year, but some things have been happening and it's been picking up. And now we're in a time of like auditioning through self-tapes. And I'm also in a weird age too, where I'm not the young ingenue, but I'm also not the mom, you know, I'm like this weird age. And so it's just been like, this has probably been the longest that I haven't worked. And it's so, it really does a number on you, because you just start thinking like, what am I doing wrong? Like, maybe I just got lucky all this time. Like I'm not good enough. Like all those thoughts that every actor has, but it's just been like amplified during this period. And it's also been frustrating and challenging, because I feel like, because I've just done like 4 years of deep therapy, where I finally feel like there's an okayness in me. Like I have a sense of like home in myself. And of course the journey continues, but it's like the first time where I just feel like really, you know, like I'm okay with myself. And yet the exterior doesn't match that. And I then just self-inflict shame of like, what am I doing wrong? And then that's where the comparison comes in, because you see like, well, why did that person book it? And I go really deep too, and I'm like, I know she has an eating disorder. Why is she getting rewarded? Like that's where my voice goes. And that's like that binary thinking too of this value system of like, you know, if you have this problem, then you don't deserve good things. Or if you've worked through this, then you get this prize.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at right now.
That's a tough place. And I feel for you, and my heart goes out to you. you said it yourself, like, on the work front, like, we've lived in a fucking pandemic and stuff just stopped and wasn't happening. So like that is like a very good reason for you not working. Like that makes sense to me, just like, outsider looking in kind of thing. And and at the same time, you've been going to therapy. Like you've been doing internal work. Like that is beautiful. Like that is the life's work, right? And yes, at the same time, of course we can feel frustrated and shitty that like this is the thing that I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
This is what like helps sustain my life, right? And it's hard not to place intrinsic value on our work.
Yeah, especially,
I've been trying to. Yeah, go
ahead. I
ahead.
was just gonna say, especially when for me, the work that I do is what I love. Like I still, that was part of this period too, is just like, earlier on, probably 3 years ago, the kind of dark night of the soul questioning, like, do I want to still do this when everything was kind of flipped around and I didn't know what made sense anymore? And what came through that was, because there was a period where I was terrified, like, oh my God, what if like I keep unraveling this stuff and realize that like I don't actually want to do this? But what came through was that I do, and I love it so much. And that's what also has made it more difficult, is it's like, it's what sustains me, but not just financially. It's also what sustains me. It's my creative outlet. Like that's my creative voice, and it gives me life, and there's so much that I'm not in control of with it, that I still grapple with, like how to engage with that.
It's hard, and you will work again.
Thank you.
And in addition to that, Amanda, you will find things in addition to your job as an actor. You will also find things that fill you up in new ways that you haven't discovered yet. That
I know to be true as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So you mentioned before, like value, like who sort of defines our value or worth. Like, how would you respond? Like, how do you, like, when I say who defines our worth, like, how would you respond?
You do. Like,
there you go.
You yourself. And that's been a huge shift for me too, because as I said earlier, like my value was based off of how people, all the external. If I get the job, how much money I have, do people like me, being like all these different versions of good. And I say that with air quotes. And, that dark night of the soul that I referenced, like, was a real thing for me. And that was a huge part of it, was that I just realized that I was handing myself over to everyone else to tell me what they thought of me, and had never really stopped to think, like, do I actually even agree with their value system? And like, what is my value system? Like, that question is just like, what? Like, I can have my own value system. Like, my therapist asked me this once, and it's so good. My husband's like, I want that tattooed on me. But like, I think I was talking about how I was feeling like I was a bad daughter, because I didn't call my mom enough and stuff like that. And she said, according to who? And it just stopped me dead in my tracks. And I use it for everything, because anytime I get stuck in that kind of like, oh, I'm bad or whatever, it's like, according to who? And you have to really think about like what value system you're looking at. Like, what is a good daughter? What is a bad daughter? Like, what is a good girl? What's a bad, like, we're so in kind of automatic mode with all of this stuff that like we never stop to really think, like, is this actually what I believe, or is this just what I've been taught to believe? And is there actually something different that I believe, but I haven't really stopped to articulate for myself and name? And so I think for the value thing, that's been the shift, is just like like how I value myself is based off of my own metric system. And it's always shifting and changing.
I love that. What a good question to ask. Like the one that it makes me think of the one that I try to do for myself is if I have a limiting belief or, a thought like that, I ask, is it true? And then I ask, can I absolutely be certain that it's true? This is like Byron Katie. Yeah.
That was
Byron
like
Katie.
the first self-development book that I don't say self-help, it's self-development.
There you go.
But that I read, and that just like blew me wide. And then the flipping of the sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
That part too was just like, it's this whole other like matrix that you enter with that, where you're like, oh my God.
Well, a lot of it has to do with you've mentioned control a number of times in this conversation. A lot of it has to do with like really getting into the nitty gritty of like, what truly can we control? And I think the answer is very, very little.
Very little. Yeah. It's so true. And wait, what were you saying that it made me think of? Oh, the control. Oh, the kind of like the self-inflicting of, I'm bad, all those kinds of thoughts. There was an article I read that named this better than I will. I'm going to butcher it, but that is also a form of control. It's like, if I tell myself like I suck and I'm shitty and I'm bad, then whatever you tell me that's going to hurt me. Like I've already like put myself to the ground. So you can't hurt me more than I've hurt myself. And therefore that makes me safe because
it's a weird self-protection.
The self-protection stuff, the way it shows up, you're just like, oh, like crafty. You're crafty.
Well, it's interesting, right? Like another way to like look at that is we are already deciding for ourselves. And so we're taking away the nuance, right? We're taking away the gray that we're talking about. And the gray is where we heal. The gray is where we like we can bump around, we can be curious, we can move about. But if we're like, it's like the box checking. We're already deciding, okay, that's I've decided. I don't need to know anything else. I'm moving on.
That's a really great way of putting it. That you're denying yourself the gray area where the healing happens and the interesting things pop up and the ahas and the, oh my goodness. And I love you. The magic, really. I mean, that's been kind of the fun part for me, is seeing how much magic there is in that gray area when you allow yourself to have it.
Beautiful. I love that. So I know for me, Amanda, like there was a great deal of control in my eating disorder. Like I felt immense. I felt like I was away at sea and didn't know like what to do or how to survive. And that was sort of the tool that I used, like, and it served me for a while. Right. And I've heard you talk about how, you've talked about it in that context a little bit yourself. Like, can you talk to me a little bit about the control piece and specifically also about like demystifying this idea that like eating disorders are beauty. Like that's like, they're for beauty, right? They're for vanity. And I think that's a common misconception.
Yeah. Oh God. Like where to begin? I think the control thing, it's funny because that roommate that I talked about, she mentioned that to me. I think she was seeing I was spiraling and she said to me, I resorted to this kind of stuff when I was in college to make me feel like I was in control. And that did not land on me. I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I was so lost in it and could not see that. It wasn't until getting, far enough away from it that I could really see this mechanism of control for me in a time where I felt so powerless and unknown and lost and confused. This one area made me feel like I was really good at this one thing. Yeah. And then I just fixated on it because everything else made me feel like I was a small speck. And this thing, I'm like, I'm really good at this. And you get like a dopamine hit, like you get high off of that. But like any drug, the high, like it wears off, and whatever you were doing at that level, you have to take to a more extreme level. You know, you have to do more drugs to get more high. And so that's where the control, it's just like everything else just kind of disappears, and that just becomes your world. And in that world, you're like, I'm amazing. I'm like doing so good at this thing. And it's like everything just kind of like fades. So it is a drug until the drug, you know, no longer gives you the high and either kills you or, you know, leaves you in a hospital like me. But so that's what I was saying earlier about kind of there's this hazy area for me, from my experience, where there was some stuff where it was like looking at these other actresses and they were thin. And so wanting to look like that, but it was so far beyond that. It's like, that was just like one pixel of a color. And it was more about this feeling of being in control at a time where I felt so out of control and I had no tools. And, you know, I've said it before, but I can look back compassionately at that time of like, you know, I created my own tool and it did serve me. There's an asterisk on that. Obviously, I'm not promoting eating disorders, but that was the only way that I could make myself feel safe at that time until it could no longer do that. And I had to transition out of that. But I also know people who there's like, you know, it's ancestral trauma that has been passed down. It has literally nothing to do with what their body looks like, but this feeling of control over trauma that either isn't even like their own, but it's just been passed down, or is their own trauma. But I think it's just such a misunderstood part of the eating disorder world. And unfortunately, you know, I'm always cautious too with talking about mine, because my story is like the stereotype. And so by me sharing it, I perpetuate the narrative of like thin white woman obsessed with being skinny, like starving herself. That is what we think of when we think of anorexia. And it's been through working with Project Heal, who I know that, you know, with Camp Heal that you've been involved with.
Yeah.
But it's like through working with them, I've been exposed to the many different ways that this thing manifests. And it's been so eye-opening for me and also helpful in my own healing, but also has made me more passionate about helping people and talking about it so that we can hear these other perspectives. And that's why I was so excited to hear your story, because we don't have a lot of men talking about this. And it's, you know, a third of people who experience eating disorders are men. And yet how many men do we hear talk about it? And it's because it's like, you know, no one wants to be the guy that says he has like what people view as like a thin woman's disease or obsession.
And these are these systems again, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm curious, like, so I love Project Heal, and Camp Heal was one of those experiences where I felt like, oh, these are my people. I never had that. Like I sort of healed and went through recovery on my own.
Same.
So what was that experience like? Did you have like family? Did you have people in your corner that were rooting you on, or was just kind of you alone?
I was really alone in it because, you know, most people with eating disorders were really good at hiding it. And so I was hiding it really well. You know, my family lives up in Canada, so they weren't really seeing me. This was before FaceTime. And so I was really able to hide it. And, you know, I was young, so the people around me, you know, everyone's doing weird, messed up shit. So, and through the healing, like at the time I couldn't afford therapy. I was Canadian, so I didn't have health insurance down here. I couldn't go to a facility, but even if that was available to me, I don't think at that time I would have. It was very much my personality of like, this is my problem. I'll deal with it on my own. And so I think because of the accident, I think it just scared the shit out of me so much, where it wasn't that it like completely ejected me out of my eating disorder, but it pushed me out enough where I wasn't hurting myself so much. And I could continue to take little baby steps away from it day by day, not day by day, but, month by month, I suppose. But like over time, continue to take steps. And it wasn't, until way later, like almost 10 years later, that I actually started doing therapy about it. I mean, I could acknowledge before then that I had an eating disorder, but I didn't actually start doing the work on it until 10 years later, when I felt like I was actually able to like go in that room and like look at that. And part of that was through working with Project Heal, meeting other people who also had a history of an eating disorder, who were just talking about it like it was what they had for lunch, or what they got at the grocery store. It's just like, oh yeah, I had anorexia and this happened to me. And I'm just like, we're not ashamed. We're just talking about it. Like, it really caught me off guard at first, but in a great way. And it was so healing for me to be around other people, because at that point, the only thing I had was Portia de Rossi's book. Like, that's like the only, like, I remember reading that and being like, okay, so I'm not crazy, because what she is writing about is exactly like what I've been, living with. But I truly felt like, but I'm the only one I know, who has experienced this. And since, being more vocal about my story, like anytime I bring it up on Instagram, first of all, there's so many strangers who reach out about like, I also have experienced this, but also a lot of my friends and male friends have reached out to me being like, I struggle with a version of this. And it's, there is power in sharing our stories when we're ready. And I definitely am grateful for, Project Heal kind of, they didn't push me, but like working with them pushed me to want to talk about it more. And I'm kind of using it as a map for my sexual trauma healing, because with my eating disorder, because I've been working with Project Heal for so many years now, I really don't have shame with it anymore. We all have our dark days or whatever, but like for the most part, it doesn't scare me to talk about it. I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed that this, I struggled with this. Yeah. And I aspire to have that kind of healing with my sexual trauma. And that was part of, me recently posting about it. That was something deep in me, was like beyond my brain, was like, this is the next step. Like, you need to release this in this way. And it was so terrifying to do, but also felt so right to do.
I'm so glad to hear that. It's so courageous. It is so uniquely our own choice to like say, when is the right time to share, right? Mm-hmm. Who, and as Brene Brown says, like, who has earned the right to hear, and listen, right?
Yes.
All of that piece. Yeah. I'm so grateful that you are sharing your story, and, because I'm just a little guy over here, with my independent podcast and doing what I can to like get the word out about this stuff. And then when I see folks like you who are, in Hollywood, actors, and they and you're being transparent and you're being vulnerable and you're sharing your story in a way that's both like allowing people in and also healing yourself in a way, like it's beautiful. It's like the gift we can give one another that is the greatest.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. And also though, to you, like, that's what I'm reflecting it back to you, because seeing what you're doing with this podcast and the conversations that you're having and holding, because I think that's to what Brene Brown was saying, like I've had those experiences where I've had to learn the hard way that not every situation is fertile ground for these kinds of conversations. And I've unfortunately had to experience that to learn that. And it's just kind of like a trust and a knowing, when someone is able to hold that. And you also know when they're just kind of looking for their clickbaity thing. And those, I'm not interested in those opportunities.
Those are a symptom of the whole problem, right? It's all about surface, and it's all about numbers, and those systems are the comparing systems, and and
that's when the story gets shifted and changed and turned into the soundbite that you were trying to avoid. The soundbite that is just the stereotype of what, and I think that's why we have this kind of stereotype too with, especially with actresses or models with eating disorders. It's just I see those stories that come out, and I know the intention of the person, but then the media has just shifted it into this kind of like, there's such a fetishization of like thinness, but then like eating disorders and thin, beautiful girls. And it's really gross to me.
It's horrifying, and it's literally killing people. Right.
Yeah.
And yet we have diet culture. We have people who are as powerful as Gwyneth Paltrow. I mean, she said recently, I read this and I wrote it down. She said, and this may be triggering for people listening, but she said, I went off the rails because I ate bread.
I saw that.
Things like that. Right. And it's just like people, like millions of people follow her and are inspired by her and aspired to be her. And what she is saying is disordered eating wrapped up in wellness. I mean, her specific statement is disordered eating, certainly, I would argue. But there is so much disordered eating disguised in wellness and holistic health and all of it. And it's scary.
It's very, very scary, and it's insidious, and it's like they can package it up and make it look like something else. And I've even seen how it's still able to kind of get at me despite having this history and doing so much education for myself to be able to clock that. And then it gets in, you're like, they got me again. But it's so dangerous. And, I struggle with Instagram with all of that, because there's the one lens of, the detox teas and these stomach corsets and stuff like that. But then you also see the other side of it, of this movement of incredible human beings who are calling it out, who are taking up space unapologetically, and educating people on this stuff and educating me, and that's the side of it where I'm like, thank God we have this, but there's another side where I'm like, let's burn this thing down.
Dismantle it all. Yeah. Burn it down is the right word. Yeah. I think of someone like Jamila Jamil, who's like calling that shit out every time she sees it. Like, she is one of my heroes.
She's
in that
so
way.
courageous in that. She just, she doesn't care. She's risked so much to call out that kind of stuff.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I hope we can all get there as humans, and obviously some of us like you, Amanda, are like entrenched in these systems that can punish someone for sort of calling something like that out or speaking up. And that is, I hope we can move away from that, or just burn it down to your point.
Burn it all down.
Yeah. So I cannot avoid the truth of the fact that you are married to Dustin Milligan, who is on one of the most heartwarming, life-affirming shows that I've ever been witness to.
Wow.
It was like, seriously, watching Schitt's Creek last year for the first time was a salve for my soul.
Wow, that's
And
great.
I just had to call it
love
out.
that so much it certainly has resonated with a lot of people, and I think especially during the pandemic has been a comfort for so many people, which is an affirmation for art and storytelling and TV and movies, and is a beautiful thing.
And I think it gets even deeper than that, which is it's a show that is a reflection of humanity and humanity that is about empathy. It has such an empathetic lens on the world, and it has such a meeting people where they are lens on the world. It has such a respect for human intricacy and feelings, and I just I cried most episodes.
Aww.
It was that emotionally resonant for me. So
I love that so much, and I love I think we've all had those experiences with whatever movie, TV show that we've watched, but that is the feeling that I had when I was a kid, and where I was like, I want to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. It's just so magical. And so, whenever we get the chance to have actually done that, and for Dustin to be a part of a show that has been so, comforting for so many people, is not lost on him for sure.
Well, I mean, I think I quote this, I don't know, every time on this show, but it makes me think of Roger Ebert talking about as movies as empathy machines. Mm-hmm. And it's the same as TV, right? It's story. It's story. We reflect on the characters, and we see ourselves through them, and it's a sort of this beautiful exchange.
Yeah, to me it's you're able to kind of spark a remembering in the audience of their humanity and who we are as human beings. And there's just always something that will spark that in you in the weirdest ways too. It's something that you would never expect it to resonate. Mm-hmm. And that's my favorite thing. And kind of, I think, something that I also just aspire to have in life, in my friendships of, and that's why I love photography. It's getting to reflect back to someone how I see them, so that they can remember their greatness, their humanity, their magic. And I've been trying to work on doing that for myself.
Yes. We have to start with ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
But us people pleasers, us perfectionists, us sort of recoverers, we often forget about we forget about ourselves to the detriment of ourselves. Yeah. We do everything we can within our power to go outward, to help others, to give all of our. I mean, I know for myself, giving every ounce of my energy and time and space to others before I go inward, and that'll be a lifelong challenge for me for sure.
I did find that COVID was helpful in that for me. Of
oh yeah,
for me, I mean, I know it's manifested so differently for everyone, but I think just because so much of my world shut down, and there was the urge to, just find my new numbing technique, but it really did. It was weird because I think it was a month after the pandemic started, it just came up for me. It was time to put a pause on my therapy, which was crazy for me because it had been such a bomb for me, bomb and a salving bomb, not a bomb. But I realized that I had gotten to the place in therapy where the people pleaser in me was coming out, where I wanted to just keep showing my therapist, look how amazing I'm learning all these stuff. And it felt like it was becoming not performative, but that there was an aspect of, I wanted to be her good little student. And it was time to put a pause on that. And if I didn't have that, then where do I put that? And and really focusing on like, okay, I'm not going to do that with my friends. I can't do that with my work.
Yeah.
And there's like, I'm not seeing anyone, and then actively choosing like, and I'm not going to, find some like photography project to create that like affirms like my aspirational pursuits or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And just a lot of, sitting with myself, which again is such a privilege. I can't not say that, that, the pandemic was, and still is, as it still goes on. But, I had the privilege of not having to go to work, and not needing to go to a job because I had the financial stability. And I took that opportunity to really just sit with myself and not go, resort to these ways of getting gold stars from the outside.
It's such a tremendous insight, and I'm so grateful you found it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Amanda, let's talk about empathy heroes.
Ooh.
So this is the part of the show where you and I talk about someone in our lives. Could even be a character from a story, a TV show, a movie we love. Someone just is a deeply empathetic, compassionate person. I will go first.
Yeah, please
give you
do.
a moment to think. Yeah.
Please take it away.
So my empathy hero this week is the Korean vegan, or Joanne Molinari. Molinari? I don't know if that's the last name, but her name's Joanne. She's the Korean vegan on Instagram, and someone I've been following for a while. She does a lot of cooking videos, and also at the same time, she does a lot of just mental health advocacy awareness stuff that is very beautifully shot and beautifully written by her. She posted something just a couple of days ago, because it's Mental Health Awareness Month as of this recording, and it like, she didn't have to like get into specifics, but I was just so moved by what she wasn't saying. Like, it was that like resonant and weighty, and I was just like bowled over by the beauty of it. And she is someone that is just wonderful, and she has a book coming out in October, I think. So I'm excited about that. But just someone I look up to, someone I am inspired by. And anyone listening, if you're not following the Korean vegan on Instagram, please do. She's wonderful.
I gotta check her out. She sounds great. Yeah. The pressure of the most perfect answer.
There's no perfect answers. You can have more than one.
I know there's no for that.
I'm not giving out gold stars.
Oh, okay. I wanted one. I wanted to feel good about myself. No, this past week feels like a blur. So wish I had like, I saw this thing on Instagram and it really sparked me. But while you were talking, I looked up at my bookshelf and saw the book that truly destroyed me in the best way this year and was instrumental in so much of my healing with my sexual trauma. And that's Chanel Miller's book, Know My Name. And talk about courage. I mean, for those of you listening who don't know, she was the rape victim in the Brock Turner Stanford, I think, rape case. Yep. Horrific. Yep. and awful. And she wrote a memoir that was so helpful for me. And she's such a talented writer. And the way that she articulated the experience of being a victim, and not just the most obvious ways, but the micro ways that it affects how you show up in the world, how you think about yourself, all of it, the way, like, she doesn't even remember, she was blacked out. She doesn't remember the rape. It's everything after that messed with her. And the way that she chronicled that just truly changed my life. And I'm so grateful for her. And then watching her, post the success of this book, she's an illustrator and she's done this podcast with her sister. It's just really beautiful to see her not shy away from her history, but also not take on the identity of this is who I am. I'm the, girl who was raped. It's just like to see someone also express themselves in different ways and have joy is just so beautiful and inspiring and truly just one of the most remarkable books I've ever read. Huge trigger warning with that one though.
Yeah, absolutely. I read that book last year, blown away, just stunning. And you're right, like the way it's a lot about, it's about the micro stuff that we don't think about. And I think anyone should read this book. Like, obviously like it's a book about a woman who, it's about her rape experience, but it's also so much more about trauma and culture and her writing, just stunning.
Yeah. So like that stuff we were talking about before of the gray areas of these events that we diminish and dismiss. There was so much that she articulated that gave validation to things that I have felt but didn't know how to name, and therefore dismissed them as just, my stuff that I just need to get over. But then her naming it, you're just like, oh my God, that's what that like, and it wasn't my, it's like all of that. It was just truly a liberating book to have had the honor to read. Like, I'll probably read it again.
Same. So the listeners, I'll link that book in the show notes. It's called Know My Name by Chanel Miller. It's wonderful. Amanda, where can the folks, the Feely humans out there, connect with you, learn more about you, watch your stuff? I mean, obviously, you folks who have HBO, you can watch Silicon Valley. There's 6, 7 seasons?
Yeah, 6 or 7. I've lost track. I think it's 6.
6 seasons. Yeah. Okay. Silicon Valley on HBO, but where else can folks connect with you?
I'm only socially on the gram, and that's Amanda Crew with a C. And that's pretty much my online presence. I got off of it for like a year, but missed it, but also like then hated it. It's just complicated.
It is complicated.
Yeah. I'm not on it too often, but when I pop on, it's worth it. I promise.
It is. I can attest to that. Yes. Well, Amanda's Instagram the gram will be linked on the show notes for this episode at feelyhuman.co. Amanda, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable and just being this beautiful light in a world that seems scary and oppressive. And I'm grateful for your voice.
I appreciate you holding the space for me. We'll probably have a Brene Brown vulnerability hangover tomorrow when I realize what I cried about and revealed, but also knowing that that was what needed to be expressed.
Good. I'm grateful for that. Well, listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring, pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You, Me, Empathy.